Hey there, welcome to Umami Complex. Today we are going to do a dish with concentrated umami flavor in a silky smooth package. It's going to be salted duck egg yolk tofu. Now you can also make this dish with crab roe and crab meat or a whole salted duck egg, but whatever is in season and available to you will do just fine. And if you're a vegan, you can even replace the egg yolk with some pumpkin. So let's just get into it. Like usual, we want to start with a clean cutting board and we're going to cut up some spring onion for garnish. We are going to add this in at the end of the cooking process and it's basically going to be raw, so make sure your knife and board is clean. Now, if you're using a really fresh spring onion, it will produce something we call 葱鼻涕 or spring onion snot. And if you see that sort of clear, slightly mucousy liquid bleeding out of your spring onions, don't be afraid. It's just really fresh. If you see that, make sure you rinse off the spring onions after cutting it up and you scrape the board to get rid of any of the residues on cleanup. Now, you want to use a soft silken tofu. I picked one from a local Chinese supermarket called TNT, and they produce these tofus in Canada, which is great. It's the closest thing I've found outside of China that tastes like a Chinese tofu. Korean tofus don't taste the same. Japanese tofus don't taste the same. And God forbid, the stuff that they sell to vegans for salads is not going to work here. Silken tofu is extremely tender and silky and smooth, but it also comes with an added issue that it breaks really easily. This packaging from this particular brand of tofu is complete garbage. It's ribbed and it's airtight. Even if I poke holes in the bottom, it just doesn't want to come out in one piece. So if you can't get your tofu out in one piece, don't feel bad. I have trouble too. But once you have it out, we want to cut it up in small cubes, sort of the size of the tip of your thumb. It doesn't have to be very neat. If it's got rough surfaces, it'll just cling onto the sauce even better. And then we're going to put all of that in a saucepan and we are going to boil it in salted water to add some flavors before we start cooking the tofu in the sauce. And also we're going to cook until the tofu develops little holes in its surface. For something like mapo tofu, you don't want that, but here you want it to develop the little holes so it can absorb all the sauce. Next, we are going to finely mince some pickled ginger. I pickled my own ginger, ignore the label on the jar. It's just ginger soaked in soy sauce. If you want to do this, you can do this like a day ahead of the cooking process. And if you have fresh ginger, you can use fresh ginger too. But make sure it's finely minced because you don't want to taste bites of ginger. That'll ruin the sort of sweet, silky flavor of the tofu and the dish overall. Next, finely mince garlic. This is the same idea as the ginger. You want it finely minced because you don't want it to ruin the texture and the natural sweet silky flavor of the tofu. You don't want to smash the garlic and you don't want to sort of pulverize it with something like a pestle or mortar or use a food processor or just go at it chopping randomly. The reason is because the garlic will bleed if you do that and it'll oxidize faster. When it's finely chopped like this, and it doesn't bleed, when it's lightly cooked, like we're going to do later, it's going to taste sweet. But if it oxidizes and it bleeds, it's going to stink a little bit. You don't want that. Next, we are going to prepare our salted duck egg yolks. If you go to a Chinese supermarket, they will sell just salted yolks. This is usually used for pastries, but it works really well here. If you can find whole salted duck eggs, use that. The egg white will sort of add umami and salty flavors so you can skip on, chicken powder and MSG later. And if you have actual crab, if crabs are in season and you can get fatty crabs with really amazing looking sort of orange yellow yolk, or crab roe rather, use that. That is going to taste best. Okay, hot wok, cold oil, go in, oil the wok, pour that oil back out. You can use it again because it hasn't touched anything. And get some more cold oil. This is called seasoning the wok or just oiling the wok. This way, things don't stick and it's going to look nice and shiny. Okay, now that your wok is prepared, medium-low heat, add in your crab roe, or in my case, salted duck egg. And we are going to slowly render it out until you really smell the duck eggs and all of the fat sort of dissolves out of the duck egg, and it cooks to the texture that you would expect of a cooked yolk, where you can smash it easily with the back of your spoon. While that's rendering out, get half a small bowl of water and add in half a tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to make a cornstarch slurry to thicken up the sauce. To that, we are going to add a generous sprinkling of white pepper. Don't use black pepper. Black pepper is too strong. It'll sort of interfere with you really sensing the sweetness and umami of the tofu. And into that, add just about a teaspoon's worth of chicken powder. What it basically is one of those Knorr stock cubes that's smashed up. If you have actual chicken stock, you can use chicken stock instead, but I don't have any laying around, so that's what I settled for. Okay, when you get a nice foamy sauce like this, you can move on to the next step. We are going to add a really neutral tasting rice wine. It should taste like rice and alcohol and nothing else. If you're using a cooking wine, if you're using a mirin, sake, soju, vodka, God forbid, please don't. Use some clear liquor that doesn't taste like very much, because if you use a cooking wine, it'll overpower and mask the natural umami taste of the salted duck egg yolk and your tofu. After the alcohol evaporates and you can smell alcohol in the air, add in your minced garlic and minced ginger. We're going to cook this for 20-30 seconds maximum to sort of render out and get rid of the harshness of ginger and garlic while maintaining the sweetness. Okay, now your sauce is drying up a little. Stir up your starch slurry, make sure there's no clumps, and then add the starch slurry to the sauce to almost deglaze it a second time. The first time was with the rice wine, the second time with your starch slurry. We are getting close to the finish line now. We are going to add in the cooked tofu from the other pot into the wok. And instead of stirring the tofu, which will, break it up and get it to crumble into pieces, we're going to swirl that tofu around in the sauce in the wok until it is really nicely combined. And then we are going to finish with a nice teaspoon of sugar. This sugar will round out the taste and sort of lift the umami flavors forward even more. If you did not use crab roe and you used duck egg, consider adding a small sprinkling of MSG that will again add even more umami, and because you didn't use something like crab or fish, it won't fight against the natural umami flavor. If you want a little bit more aromatics, before you finish and plate, add in a little bit more white pepper and you're ready to eat. I have not really found any other dish that has the same kind of silky and light texture as this dish and still packs so much intense umami flavor in it. I like this in all seasons over a nice bowl of white steamed rice. It's really a joy. If you enjoyed this recipe, or at least enjoyed watching it, you should definitely consider trying it yourself. And if it turns out well, give me a like, ask questions in the comment section, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more amazing recipes like this.